What's up, everybody? This is BakaBites. Today, we are doing our fall 2024 anime season review.
Fine. Hi, I'm
What?
Magically Average, and that's Frankfurter.
Yeah, they
You
know
winged.
us at this
No,
point.
they don't. What? Are you getting such a big head because we just went over
You're
our
a
numbers?
wingding. Yeah,
This
all
kid.
30
Wait, hang on.
numbers.
Before we get into it, yeah, I was gonna say all three of our numbers. Before we get into this, he's like, "Oh, I can't. I hope TikTok gets banned." And I was like, "Well, how
That
you
was a
slow your roll?
joke.
Slow your roll, bud. That's where.
It was a
That's where
joke.
90% of our follower base is. Calm down. Getting
And then you
too
talk shit
too
about our
big for your
podcast service,
bridges."
and then you're just like,
Hey,
"This is a
shush, I didn't
podcast
talk about
service."
poop about anything. Acast is wonderful. Their service is great, and they push out our podcast to all of your streaming sites. So if you want to listen to us, you can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. On Spotify,
Anyways,
Apple, Stitcher,
we are talking about the
iHeart.
fall 2024 anime season. We have a lot of shows to go through. 11 for you, 14 for me.
Yep.
Which I feel like this is the first season in a very long time that you have watched a butt ton of shows.
Okay. Thank you.
It is. You're welcome.
I was gearing up for an insult. It was like for you to finally do your job and watch anime. I was like, oh, okay.
No, it's not an insult. I'm just excited that we have a
Thank
lot
you.
to talk about.
I'm glad you finally acknowledged that I'm trying.
You are trying.
It
I
is
love you for it.
nice. Can you like just any sort of words of affirmation from you would be such appreciated.
I love
just
you and your silly butt
I
and
go
your
to
chair
sleep
that
every
only has
night.
one arm.
I go to don't make fun of my chair. No one can see it. No one can see that my chair. No one can see that my chair lost its arm. But now they do because I just showed it off. God. No, I take that
You've
back.
got 11 shows
I don't want to hear anything from you anymore.
You've got 11 shows to talk about.
Assimation is more like
I've
it.
got
You
14
doo-doo head.
shows to talk about. We have done a little bit of a different thing, and by different thing, we finally set a rubric in, like a structured rubric. We've written it all down,
I can show
1
it
through
too.
10. You can show it too. We're gonna go over it real quick before we get into our rankings and ratings, etc. So starting from the bottom, a 1 out of 10 means.
Let's just classify the 1 through 4s are like just it's garbage. We didn't really put much thought into it other than like piecemealing
we put a
out
little
how
bit of thought into it, but yeah, it's not.
it's like how bad is bad truly.
Correct. So number 1 out of 10 is never in a million years would you be able to pay me to watch this absolute dog water show again, which is pretty damn bad. That would be a Tomodachi game type bad.
Yeah.
Number 2, or a 2 out of 10. You may be able to pay me, but it would take a good chunk of change and some expensive liquor to get me to sit down and watch it all over again.
This would be
That's got to be.
Yeah, this would be like you with Overlord and me.
No, Overlord to me would probably be a 3 or 4.
Oh.
Actually, I can look up what it is.
No,
Let's
just keep going.
now later, but yeah. 3 major flaws in both presentation, storytelling, and or overall cohesiveness that drastically impacts the viewing experience, making it difficult to continue each and every episode. 4 is fundamental. Oh, what?
I was gonna give examples. The 3 to me was like season 2 for Attack on Titan, which is why I dropped it, and why many people also dropped it.
Fair enough. 4, fundamentally bad, but not unwatchable. There are redeeming factors, story, character development, world building, etc., but the watchability is inhibited by major faults. Now, this is like what I normally watch while I work. I just finished
Brain Dead.
Yeah, no, I don't know where my phone's over here. There was a show I literally just finished today. It was called The Aristocrats' Otherworldly Adventure Serving Gods Who Go Too Far. It was a 4 out of 10. It was dumb. Wasn't great.
Was that the one with where they took the actual video of someone on farm equipment and like
no
put someone's
not to my remembrance. No.
Oh, which one am I thinking of? It was
no. You're thinking of Kamikatsu. Kamikatsu, the world where there no gods exist or whatever.
I knew it was gods related. Whatever. I was close enough.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like a 4 out of 10. It's really bad. You could turn your brain off. You really don't have to. It's not a brain burner by any means of the sort. 5 out of 10. Completely average. Not inherently bad, but still not good enough. Which this is a lot of also shows that I watch as well. And then we get into like the actual kind of rankings and where we define a lot of things. A 6 is fine. Whether it's personal preference or peer pressure, the show is just a step above mediocre. There are certain qualities about it that make it enjoyable, however, more could have been done. Now, this to me, there's a couple minor spoilers for ahead. I do have a couple sixes on my list, so we'll get more into that as we go on. A seven is good. There are multiple qualities that help give a positive viewing experience. That being said, the show itself doesn't do anything new for the genre or overly impress in any specific way. So
Basically,
it's a good definition. Like it's
yeah.
good, but it's not
Well,
pushing anything forward.
when you think of it, because like 6 and 10, so anything above 5, right now you're getting to like where there's much more
Passing
gray
grade.
area. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it's passing gray, but it's more gray in terms of like how are you going to really distinguish between what is a 7 and what's an 8? So a 7
correct.
would be like I tried to, when we were putting this together and coming up with a description. 7 to me was like the average of the top average. So like your average
Yeah,
of the average. So if something is certainly more than a 5, but nothing too great as well, it's like a 7. It's just middle of the pack, but still above what you would consider to be like a completely mediocre show.
correct. And then excuse me. We have an 8, which is we didn't put it in here. It's supposed to be great.
I did. I put
Consistent.
great.
Oh, I I guess I forgot to put it in mine.
Yeah, 8 is great.
That's 8 is great. Consistently delivers quality episodes each week that progress the story, build characters and or world, or delivers on its presentation. There are still flaws in the show, but not enough to impact the viewing experience. There's a few of these on our list as well. I feel like between 6 and well, we'll just keep going. I'm not going to ruin
Yeah.
where my top end is for this season, but great is great. There's a few flaws in it, but it's not enough to, get rid of your enjoyment of, looking forward to it each and every week.
Mm-hmm.
9 is excellent. Stands out above the majority of other shows in its genre and in some ways improves upon the overall medium, quality of production, storytelling, etc. It has minimal objective flaws, but nothing that would be detrimental to the watchability of the show.
I do want to highlight the key
Yeah,
word. The key part is has minimal objective flaws. So it's not like personal preference. This is because this is what we were having problems with. It's like how do we distinguish between like a 9 and a 10? Because
yeah,
10 out of 10 is perfect, right? It's 100%. Like you didn't miss anything. But a 9 is
yep,
still great. It's still fantastic. Just what is the marker between them? And it's that we put in objective flaws. So there's something that consistently people point out, or there's something that is I don't even want to say problematic. There's just an aspect of the anime that is something everyone either notices or picks up on that is kind of a ding against it. But it's not significant to the point where people like drop it, right? I
yeah,
guess think of a situation like a Blue Lock where like the animation quality was so bad everyone was just like no, that is objectively bad. Like it is poor, piss poor.
you cannot explain this away. This is just real fucking bad.
Yeah.
And then 10 we have perfect. Other than a few personal nitpicks, the show is flawless. Standing atop the library of anime, this show is the pinnacle of its medium and should be viewed as the new gold standard in parentheses at the time for anime.
Yeah. So this is, I mean,
For or at the time is in parentheses for anime is the ending of the sentence. But
yeah.
yeah, this is basically something again, while a 9 is objective flaws, this is subjective flaws. Like there could be for me, I think Cowboy Bebop is a 10 out of 10. Yes, I understand that the show isn't perfect, but to me it is. Like I know that like there are a few things that I would change here or there, but
Mhm.
that's my personal preference that I would change here or there. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I think that it is a perfect show. And at the time is also another one of those things that we consider a lot of older shows, or I at least consider a lot of older shows a 10 out of 10. Are they a 10 out of 10 out of today's standards? Absolutely not. But
Right.
at the time that they came out, they were the pinnacle for what they were.
Hmm.
and I think that they are 10 out of 10s. I think there's potentially one movie out there that could be a 10 out of 10 that came out in like the early 2000s, late 90s that could be a 10 and still stand up to the test of time. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
Uh,
it should be
but yeah,
noted too that this ranking or I guess rubric that we built is still subjective, right? No
yeah,
matter what, it's still our opinions. We're still
right.
opinionated people. So even if we rank something a 7 or an 8, but you're like that's a 10 or that's a 5 or 4, like
Yeah,
just understand we're building this to make it more understandable for people to get why we ranked it.
correct.
But yeah, but 10 is like, yeah, the key pieces to 10 for me are personal nitpicks. So it's like it's subjective pieces. It's like, oh,
Agreed.
I wish they would have done this with the animation, or I wish they would have done this with the ending sequence or whatever, right? But not enough
Yep.
to give it any negative marks to affect its score.
And with that, let's get into our season review.
Yay.
Again, as we said, you have 11 shows to go through. I have 14. Let's start with our bottom three. And
Oh,
I'm gonna start us like I'm going from the bottom up.
yeah, yeah.
My least favorite show that I watched, and I don't know why I watched all of it, but I did. It was just one of those things that I was like, you know what? I'll come back next week for it. The most notorious talker runs the world's greatest clan.
Oh
This is just some edgelord bullshit that I just enjoyed. I just enjoyed it. There was
God.
no good reason for me to enjoy it, but I did. It just every week I was just like, yeah, I'll keep coming back. No particular reason, but I will.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those things also, like, if I had missed it for a week or 2, like, this would have been a show I dropped.
Yeah.
Because there were multiple shows like that that it's like, I liked them okay, but I missed a week or 2, and I was like, I'm already behind on other shows, like, I'm gonna catch up on those rather than this, and then it's like, well, I'm way too far behind, it is a drop. So,
Yeah.
this was one of those ones that I stuck with, and I was just like, it's fine. It's not great. It's a 6 out of 10 for me. Also, so we have an overall rating and a first episode rating, and for this show, first episode and overall is 6 out of 10. It's
Okay.
just fine.
So the only show I gave a 6 was based on first episode, and it was one that I had planned to go back to. I just didn't have time, so I got through one episode. It definitely didn't live up to my standards. That was Megalomir Magical Girls. Because I'd bought the first few mangas, I had read volume 1. I liked the story and
Yeah,
thought it was interesting because it's basically just the corporate agency side of running a magical girl agency, right? So it's like
yeah,
the industry of magical girls in a society where they are rampant. Um, the first episode there was something off. The note I had was like I couldn't really pinpoint it, but I didn't enjoy it all too much. It was whether it was like animation quality or lackluster characters. It was just slightly disappointing.
okay. So this is right outside my top of the bottom 3. This is
Okay.
my, like, 4th show up, so not in the bottom 3, it's the 4th one.
Yeah.
I gave the first episode a 7.5. I actually really enjoyed it. I gave the overall season a 7.
Okay.
Because I think I like more it got like went on, the story, the character progression, kind of started developing more and more, and I was more intrigued by that than anything else.
Hmm.
Um, but the animation in this is pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
As it goes on throughout the season, like the characters, I do like the character designs. The character designs are wonderful,
Mhm.
and the transformations are also wonderful. But whenever they're not doing transformations, the animation is just not good.
And
It's very just bland.
I should say, yeah, I mean, like animation quality is one thing. Like if the story is good enough, like I said, like I always say, I can normally get through it. I mean, there certainly are outliers, and I'll talk about one very soon. Um, but like,
Yeah,
yeah, for the characters themselves, they just seemed sort of not the designs, but the characters' personality and characteristics. They just seemed very like bland and uninteresting, which is
fair
weird
enough.
because you want very like flamboyant
Yeah,
characters, like very loud, eccentric characters in a magical girls anime. So it's
yeah.
like it was kind of what I was hoping for, but it just didn't come off that way. So yeah, I mean,
Everybody does seem pretty toned down in the show
yeah,
overall, even like because you haven't finished it and I have. Everybody does kind of seem toned down. Nobody seems like overly like flamboyant or overly over the top. Other than the boss who dresses up as a magical girl, as like
Yeah,
a 50-year-old dude or whatnot. But
which
I will say
I know
though, like
that
the
from
character.
yeah.
Yeah, but I will say that the characters and the story do develop as the show goes on, which is what I did enjoy about the show, which led it to a 7 out of 10 for me. But I
Yeah.
do think that the first episode was a lot better than the rest of the season because it does introduce you to the characters, the world pretty well, and it has the best animation out of the series. So it's just one of those like, yeah, I really enjoyed it. But as it went on, it was the
Less.
animation was just it was harder and
Yeah.
harder to just
Hoo-
be, you know,
hooked you with the
defend.
cover, hooked you with the cover of the book, but the rest of it was pretty mediocre. Yeah.
Correct Mundo. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I completely understand it being at the bottom of your list. But yeah, to me it wasn't as stellar as I hoped it would, but it was still
It
good.
yeah, I should preface too by saying this was the one anime that I only watched one episode of. So the rest I've watched in full.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
just
I
it
have a few that I watched like a handful of episodes or one episode of and I just completely just
you're like,
dropped it.
meh.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, like I watched Yakuza Bride or whatever it was called. I watched
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
first 4 episodes of that. And it was good, but it wasn't, phenomenal or
Yeah.
anything like that. So, but and
What else
I
is on the bottom of your
Shishuman,
list?
I don't know.
You watch too
The
much, my
Yeah,
guy. We can't.
I
We're gonna.
did,
We'd
I
be
did.
here
That's
all
fine, that's
night.
fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. The next one for me at the bottom of the list, second to last, honestly, you can exchange these 2. Let This Grieving Soul Retire. Now, this is another kind of fantasy world show like the most notorious Talker runs The World's Greatest Clan. They're both fantasy, like they're isekai but fantasy type
Ugh,
shows.
yeah.
This one was more on the comedy side, which it did get a good couple chuckles out of me throughout the series, but it was one of those things of just like some of these episodes are just really horrendously bad and others are actually pretty darn good. That
Hmm.
is just like first episode was a 6, but it was an entertaining 6. It wasn't necessarily anything that you were like, "Wow, I really have to think hard on this show."
Yeah.
It was an entertaining 6. It wasn't great. And as the show went on, the story wasn't that fantastic. The characters weren't that great, but there was something charming about it that brought me back week after week. But again, if it was one of those shows that I missed a week or two, I would have probably dropped it. So overall, first episode 6, season rating 6.
Uh,
How
this
about
is this is the only anime that has the largest gap between opening and overall, like first
you?
episode and
Ooh.
overall. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. It's Uzumaki.
Yeah,
I
I
this was
honestly
the
forgot
one.
that came out this season.
Yeah, this was the one where I
It was
said
so long ago.
this is the asterisk outlier in the normally you can get by with like animation
Story.
quality if the story is good enough, right? Or if there's something redeeming about it, like you can kind of look past the animation. I should say too, animation is kind of key in certain anime. Like Blue Lock, one that's sports, I want it to look good. I don't want to watch stick figures run across a field. Like that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the action. Or it'd be like if JoJo's ended up going like the way of the house husband style where it was kind of like manga panel like
Panels.
transition, right? Like that would make JoJo's absolutely horrendous. Like you go to JoJo's to see big muscular dudes fight with spirit ghosts. That's what you go there for. But yeah, Uzumaki, the only note I have is Junji Ito just can't catch a break when it comes to anime.
You really can't.
Like none of
It
the series,
really is
the
unfortunate.
the the one that came out, I want to say last October, like last Halloween time, the macabre ones, like the stories of the macabre.
Mhm.
That one was garbage too. Like none of the adaptations and none of the projects that Junji Ito's been, I guess, associated with, whether directly or indirectly, that are anime, have been good. So it was a 4 out of 10. Like the story's still good. Like Uzumaki's still good, but you just can't watch it.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. I haven't watched it. I was gonna watch it after the first episode, but when episode 2 came out and everybody's like, "Oh dear God," I was like, "You know what?
Well,
I'll wait for all 4 episodes and then I'll watch it." And I just heard that it never got any better. I was like,
no.
"Screw it!" I read it like I'd rather it just be impersonated into my mind via the books than watch something that's just awful.
Yeah. Well, it's like
Minus like episode 1.
yeah. It's just it's such a shame, especially, and I think that the hardest piece of it to swallow is the fact that it was like episode 1 was so good and set like such a great expectation for what the rest of it is, and you're like, it's 4 episodes. They like, there's no way they can ruin this level of animation quality and production, right? And then episode 2 comes out and everyone is taken aback and they're like, what could have happened? And then shortly after that we get the article, or the tweet from one of the production managers or directors, or I can't remember who, but they're basically just like, hey, we were given 3 options. It was either to suck it up and deal with it, can it and never let it go live, or just air 1 episode. And we said suck it up and deal with it. And I was,
should have stuck with 1 episode.
I guess you should have just teased an episode and then like drifted off into the ether, done like a Has-Been Hotel, maybe wait like 3 years and then finally release it.
Just tease an episode and then just GoFundMe the rest of it. But whatever.
Something. Like, so that was just really disappointing.
Yeah, I heard nothing but bad things about it outside of episode 1 being great. But yeah. What's the third worst on your list, and then we can kind of go into the middling stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't even want to categorize this as the worst, because the rest of the ones I've watched, and again, I've said this on many podcast episodes when we do our reviews, I do not do what Frank does. Right? I don't suck it up and watch through the mediocre. Yeah, like
I let this screaming soul retire.
Yeah, I don't do that. I am quite selective when it comes to the anime that I watch, because like watching 11's still a lot. That's a lot of anime, and I've watched, if I'm being transparent, I watched probably like 3 full seasons in the last 2 days. Okay, just to catch up. The holiday season was less free time as I expected. So I don't want to. I want to say that I don't think this is bad. It's just at the bottom of the rest of my list, because I have nine more remaining. So this is, we'll say, the best of the remaining, the worst of the remaining 9. Okay, and it's still a 7. But I had Ranma 1/2 as my.
Oh.
So I gave first.
This is in my middling. I gave an 8.
Well, it's there, right? So I gave first episode 7, overall rating 7, okay? My note was basically that I like the fact that they're taking old classic anime that a lot of people might not have had access to, because, they weren't on streaming sites back then when they were airing in Japan, and unless you picked up the VHS.
Now.
Yeah, it's just something that's hard to find and go back to, but it's like a classic in terms of like anime, like an Urusei Yatsura, right? Like it's in that realm of like being kind of a classic older anime. So I like the fact that they're doing remakes of these types of anime. But my biggest gripe with it was that it got tiring at the end. I said, having not seen the original, I'm glad I watched the remake, but that's all I can really say. Basically, like, I didn't like how episodes seemed scattered, and then they would just go into like this one mini arc, and then it'd go back to scattered, and then it'd be like mini arc. And I'm like,
that's fair,
because like the mini arcs took too long. Like there was like, and apologies if we didn't say this at the beginning, we can't avoid all spoilers, mind you,
right?
If we're gonna talk about these, but like the ice skating one where they're doing the competition, I'm like, oh, this will be like 2 episodes. It was like 4 episodes. Like, holy shit. This is so long. This is so long and unnecessary, just because a stupid girl wanted a pig. I was like, this is so fucking dumb. Like, just move on. Get on. Like, there were and I think I got more annoyed with portions like that because the dialogue got stupider to me. Where like they'd pick a fight and then they'd be mad, but then something would happen and they would like make up, but then they would pick a fight again and then they would get mad and then something would happen and then they make up, and it's like, it was more enjoyable when this was happening in like random isolated events where you could see character growth, but in like sequences where it was like the ice skating or what was the other one? I can't remember the mini arc that happened. They did another stupid competition.
The rhythmic gymnastics.
Oh yeah, the rhythmic gymnastics one. Like they would like just go through these moments of dialogue where I'm just like, I'm so aggravated. I'm like, God, you regressed to basically episode 1 in terms of like growth, but then like magically the next episode they're back to like where they should have progressed to, and I'm like, just stop, please. Like, please continue along. Like, you can't keep doing this like back and forth shifting of like character development. So
Yeah.
I'm
So
saying all this now, and I'm realizing maybe I should give it a 6. But like again, I liked it for the fact that it's a good remake, and I appreciate that they kind of kept with the soul of it too. It got frustrating at the end.
That's fair. So for me, I gave the first episode a 7.5, and then I gave the season rating an 8. And a part of this comes from the fact that I watched like the first 30-ish episodes, 31, maybe 32 episodes of the original show earlier in the year.
Wow.
And yeah, out of like I think it's like 100 and some odd episodes that they have for the entire show. But what they did in 12 episodes took like 22 episodes for the original show. So for me to watch 22 episodes of even more drawn out Ranma to a condensed 12 was really nice. I really enjoyed it. But I think that they handled the subject matter of the show a lot better than they did in, back in the original. They got rid of they got rid of the nudity. They basically got rid of the nipples, which is fine. Whenever
Frank, we're gonna have to
Ranma is
bleep you.
Oh no, I said nipples.
Stop it.
But yeah, no, like they got rid of like the explicit nudity from the original, which is I thought was a good change. Granted, I mean it's basically there, but without the gratuitousness of it.
Yeah. I want to make.
So
I'm gonna make
I
one.
thought that those
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
thought that those changes were good, and I again, I understand that the pacing for some of the arcs were a bit wonky. They were still a heck of a lot better than they were in the original show. Um, but yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I thought that the animation stayed consistent all the way through, which is nice because a lot of these, a lot of anime, they'll do
I mean, it was
the first
Mappa.
few. Well, yeah, but even it doesn't matter who it is. There are still studios that'll draw you in the first 3 or 4 episodes with really good animation, take a fucking dip, and then come back with the last episode or 2 of really good animation again. This
Yeah.
one stayed consistent all the way through, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
But I will say my biggest complaint of the remake is that season 1 ends on such a fucking weird note.
Oh, I wasn't even gonna comment on that, but yeah, it is really dumb.
It just ends on such a just like blasé, weird, just like note, and just like because yeah, there's gonna be more of it eventually. You would hope, but like,
well, yeah, I was gonna say
they
it's one of
just
those
end it.
it's one of those painfully obvious ones where it's like either
More to come.
yeah, basically it's gonna be egg on their face if there's a delay and it's like 3-4 years until Ranma 1/2 season 2 comes out. You're like, good God. Can't wait to forget about that one. Yeah.
But for me, my third to last, bottom of the barrel for me, and this is gonna be a surprise to you. 365 Days of the Wedding.
It's not. You want to know why? That almost was my. But I was between Ranma and that one. Holy crap!
So
we are of the same minds.
Yeah, so I gave the first episode a 7. I gave the season a 6. This one was my most disappointing.
I thought
this one was my most disappointing because
Can
again,
I-
this is what?
Can I just read you my note first? Since we basically, because I rated it 7/7. Okay. Because
Sure.
again, I rated it as like average, but average of the top average. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm gonna read my note for you, and I want to see how accurate this is because I'm hopeful that we had a mind meld with this, and we're like
boy.
on the same
Okay.
page. So the first episode, I had a note for like what happens when 2 awkward introverted people decide to fake a marriage to avoid being sent off to Alaska. Well, not much really. I said cute opening episode with plenty more left to discover. Excited for the rest of the show. Then the note for the rest of the show is slow, slow, slow. The payoff was somewhat worth it, and the characters are frustratingly cute, but there were too many episodes that focused on other characters that were way too hard-hitting. It took away from the rest. Still a fun watch. Why were there episodes? Okay, well, you do yours first, and then I'll scream.
No, you go because you started. You started screaming. You're in your mood. Just
Why
go.
were there episodes that were so hard, like so fucking hard and deep cut, but had nothing to do with the main characters?
Because they
Like
did.
one random. There's
They
one random. But what I'm. It
You're
blows
talking
my
about
mind.
the divorce episode, aren't you?
No, I'm talking about the divorced episode, and I'm talking about the woman that has a child, and then she has like dead fucking eyes, and is like, "You sure you want to do this, fuckface?" And he's like,
So no, they were important, and I think
No,
my biggest complaint to this, like, because you were like, what do they have to do with the main character? The main character is seeing all these people go through these incidents, and yeah, I know you understand that, but like, what does it have to do with the main plot? And it kind of builds in the back of their mind, is marriage this big old thing that I really want to do? Is it really something that should be taken lightly? Because we did this on a whim, we did this without knowing each other, just
yeah.
to kind of preserve our own lives.
I
Like it really kind of just puts a worm in the back of their brain of like, this isn't a good idea. I don't know what the fuck I'm getting myself into.
Look, I understand I'm a lawyer, okay, and I understand I'm supposed to be heartless, all right.
Yeah.
But I grew up actually wanting to be an English professor and like write novels, so I understand why these were put in there, right? I understand the context behind them and what they provide to the overall story, as well as the character development between our two main characters. My whole issue is that it's such a far departure from the rest of the entire show and the tone of the show that it's like it almost felt like we were shifting in that like towards that direction entirely for the rest, but we'd snap back to like, oh, look at how awkward these two are together, like the very next episode. And I'm like, that is such a divergence between like a heavy hitting, look at this man who looks like he has the perfect life. Oh, JK, his home life is actually garbage. His wife hates him. He thought he was going home and giving her flowers for their anniversary. He got divorce papers. His child then has to go searching around town to find him because he basically abandoned his childhood. But don't worry, viewers at home, we'll make it enjoyable at the end by turning him into a fucking gorilla so he can be Gorilla Man for 3 minutes, and you're gonna watch the stupid old Scooby-Doo chase sequence where they're running across screen trying to chase the gorilla guy. Like the only one that was like it felt like was impactful was when the one character who's like, I want to get married, teach me how to get married, and like finally find someone who just has an interest like with him in an idol group, and they're like having fun, and he's like, I'm gonna ask her to marry me, and it's like, bro, it's been 2 weeks, but go for it. And she's like, follow me, and then takes him to a child.
He does say date with the intent of marriage.
Right. Sorry.
Continue.
But he very in like upfront said marriage in that sentence, and when she was like, why don't you come with me? She did like the Chris Hansen. Come with me. Come sit down.
Take a seat.
Like takes him to a daycare, turns around with her child, just dead face goes, are you sure you want this? And he was like,
I don't know. And he fucking hesitates, and it fucking kills him on the inside. Yeah,
and it's heavy. It's so heavy. But and like that that is, it seems more meaningful because there's a direct relationship with the main character. The other guy that like just works at the office who like had like 2 lines before his fucking star episode, I was like, what is happening? Like that is too much for a single episode of a character that had like literally just a in the background comment and was doing goofy stuff because he hates cancellations at their tourist agency. Like, I don't know. That piece coupled with how infuriate, like every episode I was yelling at my screen, just being like, stop. You two are the most autistic people I've ever seen try to do anything like a human does. You were as if 2 Windows XP computers tried to have some sort of connection with one another. Like it is frustrating watching you two.
Yeah.
Until the very end, and then I'm like, that payoff wasn't even that worth it. Like it was so I almost snapped my phone in half watching one of the episodes. I was like, if this doesn't happen now, and it happened, and I was like, huh. And then they were like, that was a mistake. And I was like, I swear to Christ. Don't do this to me.
this was one of my most anticipated shows of the season because I love the source material. I think the manga is great.
Yeah.
It's well paced. The characters are kooky, crazy, whatever. Like the most, as you put it, the most
There's
autistic people you've ever
Yeah,
seen
I was
in
gonna
the
say,
world.
they're just silly gooses. Was that the other word you're thinking of? They're just
Yeah,
little
they're
silly gooses.
they're just little silly gooses. But yeah, the serious moments I feel like hit like they provide. That's the thing. I feel like this show does or this series does a good job of just like these two people who don't know anything about life who are impulsively saying, "Let's get married." And they're kind of going through life like la di da di da. It's lighthearted, and then you get hit by these emotional, heavy hitting things, life
Yeah,
events that say, "Hey, this is why people. This can happen if you get married. Like this could be a possible outcome. This heavy fucking stuff that happens to you. Are you sure you want to do this?" And
yeah.
I that's why I don't mind those heavier things because it is a reminder, like a come back down to earth moment for these
I
characters.
yeah.
But to me, my biggest critiques are the show is just like the animation is atrocious. It is not good
I
by any means.
I got past it. I got past it.
It,
Again, like
I tried to, but by the fucking eighth episode, I was like, this is painful. And when they do go on a date, their date episode, I was hoping for like because they go to very scenic locations, they go to very beautiful places. The fucking scenery was just so bland and boring and just it was
well, I think that
supposed to
was
be like
but that was supposed to
what?
be the case. Cuz she took him to
No.
the fucking aqueducts.
Yeah,
The whole
but
point was
they're
that she
like
was trying to showcase the boring nature. And then there's a scene. I'm gonna educate you here, my friend. There's a scene where she puts herself into the time period in which this took place, which was like the 1600s during the Edo period, and you get this wonderful fucking flash of scenery where like all the trees are pink. There's like people in rice fields. There's like, they're doing horse-drawn carriages across the road, and it's like, oh, you can see the majesty behind all the kind of blandness of today, right? There you go. It's because her whole objective was to show how boring she was as a human being. And then she failed,
regardless,
and they
like
had an awkward kiss, and then they were like, "This never
spoilers, but
happened."
anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, regardless, they're still out in nature. Like they do take a stroll through like the hills and the not necessarily the forest, but through the trees. And something like that should have been like, could
Oh,
have
the
been
wind and
very
the
well
hills.
animated. Yeah. To me, it really hindered like a impactful moment of the series to me that I thought could have done or could have been a lot better. But
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a minor nitpick to the larger problem in the show, which is like there's no consistent tone to it, where like the fluctuation in emotional levels is so grand that it's hard to balance your viewing experience. You're like, is this going to be a heavy hitting episode? Are we going to get a casual episode? Is something explosive going to happen? Is nothing going to happen? Like, there were way too many of these like bounces between
yeah,
extremes that it's like I'm so on edge just trying to determine what's going to happen next. I'm like, I
so
can't do this.
we have spent entirely way too much on our bottom
Yeah,
three that
yeah, I know.
we
Well, the rest of it
there's
is all it can go by quickly. It's all middle of the
that's
pack is easy.
yeah. So we've gone through our bottom three. I've gone through the next one, but the one that I have above Megalomare is actually You Are Miss Servant. So I have
Oh,
the first episode. I have the first episode as a 7, but I have the overall as a 7.5.
okay.
So it's on the cusp of greatness, but I feel like there's a handful of episodes in the middle that I'm just blanking on. I don't even know I don't even
Oh yeah.
remember what the hell happened. To the point where it's just like if I don't remember what happened, like it's not great. But I do think that there are a lot of great aspects about this show, including the quality of animation and presentation. Um, it's incredibly detailed, and the expressions on the characters are incredibly detailed as well.
Hmm.
Like, I think that they did a wonderful job that way, but I think some of the material itself just generally just left my mind, and I don't even remember what the hell happened. Because like
I
after they met the other assassin who is a teacher, and after they squash that beef, I don't remember the next like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I gave it eights across the board,
Okay.
just from the standpoint that I like that they kept this dark tone and mysterious tone throughout. I'm using the
Yeah.
word tone a lot. I'm gonna try to prevent that. My brain is starting to malfunction when I say it now. Um, like I enjoyed the fact that it wasn't just kind of like this little sprinkling at the beginning to get people interested, right? To kind of give them a hook, but then drop it almost instantly. Like it was pieced throughout, and they kept drawing back to it, and there kept being moments where you kind of had this fear that this girl who was subjected to all this inhumane torture basically at a young age to turn them into an assassin and just create this dead soulless being, having
Yeah.
to like reintegrate them into society and teach them what normalcy was, like just how to be a living
How to be
breathing
human.
human being. Yeah, like like having those moments where you were kind of worried that there was going to be a regression, right? When the other assassin came in, it's like, oh, is she going to kill again? Or like when there were moments where there was like threats about her like past like being brought up, and like there was moments with her sister, like sequences where she kept thinking about her sister. I enjoyed that it was well weaved throughout, but to that end, I think the thing I appreciated the most about it was that they still retained this like slice of life cheery attitude about it,
Agreed.
where like it didn't do a 365 to, where it's like one episode is just like you want to cry in a pillow, and the other episode you're just like you want to jump around and be merry. It's like they kept it even keeled throughout, but there's like a nice weaving of
Right.
mystery and death and kind of this distraught nature, but still the cheery upbeat slice of life, like quirky girl that is absolutely in love with tonkatsu sauce and would die over it, and has dreams about a giant one that she's like, I can't lick it anymore. I ran out and now it tortures my dreams and I have nightmares. I'm like, I want to keep you so safe from the world. Just so safe. You're too
Yeah.
precious. I just
So,
that's why I gave it an 8. I think it did well in mixing those two
I'd
very
agree.
distinct
Yeah. No,
kind of
I
things.
agree. I like, again, it's at the cusp of an 8, but I gotta give it a 7.5 because like there are episodes
Yeah,
where
there's
I'm
a
just like, what the fuck
yeah.
happened here?
It's kind of it's like that unfortunate slice of life problem.
Sure.
Like even
Yeah.
ones that I love, like one of my recent ones that I love, like romance slice of life, is The Dangers in My Heart. I swear to God, I forget like half the middle episodes. Like I don't
Yeah.
fucking remember what happens. Like it's just
Yeah.
like it's
But
like it's a problem with slice of life when there's no through line other than a romantic interest or like a person of interest. There's not like a we must defeat the demon lord, right? So it's like okay, there's an adventure and you can kind of pick off where they're going on their adventure, or like you know,
yeah.
there's a
Speaking of Demon
yeah.
Lords,
Oh
my next
God.
my next one is Demon Lord 2099. The only reason I have this above is because I gave the first episode a 7.5.
Okay.
I still have 2.5 episodes left, so tentatively, I'm also at a 7.5 on this one. Um, this one was surprising to me. This was a show that I had written off, and my buddy Frank messaged me, was like, "Dude, you should watch this. I think you would enjoy it." So I was like, you know what? I at least give it a try every time he mentions something because he doesn't watch nearly as much as we do.
Yeah.
I'll try it. And I was pleasantly surprised by the first episode. And I will say that the pacing throughout the show has been really good. They don't stay on a certain arc too long.
Hmm.
That I was just like, I'm really surprised by this show. And I'm looking forward to watching the last 3 episodes. I was hoping that the sub or the dub would come out by now. Like the would have continued by now, but
Hmm.
it hasn't, so I'll just have to watch the last 3 subtitled. But yeah, I think that the pacing, the characters are fun and ridiculous because it's one of those things like the premise of the show, Demon Lord gets killed by the hero, gets resurrected like 3,000 years later essentially, or 2,000 some odd years later by one of his subordinates, and technology has taken over the world, which is decimated essentially, and You now have to reintegrate yourself into the world, and whether or not you want to take it over again, or however you want to do that. And I think that the certain ways that they go about doing things are pretty funny and mix well into a modern day world, modern day, Japan.
Hmm.
So I was pleasantly surprised by it. So yeah, right now 7.5 for the season. First episode 7.5 as well.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, why don't you give us something next?
Oh God, my next one I'm actually kind of sad about.
Are you gonna say Don Machi?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
First episode 9, overall 7.5, pending I guess final episode, but I can only imagine what happens. Um,
I had
it
7.5. First episode 8 for the season.
see I like the thing with Don Machi that I enjoy. And for those of you who don't know, we're talking about Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, season 5.
Correct.
The thing I love about the anime though is that like each season is someone who hasn't read the manga or the light novels. Each season you go in blind, not knowing
Mhm.
what in the absolute hell is going to happen. Cuz there's no like real true continuation season to season. Like each season's kind of like its own contained.
A month has gone by between seasons, and you
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna happen, essentially, is
Yeah.
what happened
Exactly.
with
Like season 1 you're just getting used to him building out his fucking harem, right?
his posse and his harem.
His pot, yeah. But it realistically it's him getting a better understanding of who he is, right? As an adventurer and like I guess subtle hints at his heritage. Um season 2 you don't like, I like just for the last sequence cuz the first sequence with the war game, I'm like, eh.
It
But
was
the remaining of it
yeah.
with the Amazonians and that family, I
Our
really enjoy.
yeah, our Familia arc was very good.
Yeah. Third season, you get introduced to the I can't remember what they are, xenomorphs. I know they're
Yeah,
not
the
xenomorphs.
Xenos.
Xenox, yeah, Xenos. You're like, whoa, these things
This
came
is
out of
great!
nowhere. This is
Wowie
great.
zowie.
Season 3 is awesome. Season
Yeah, and
4
you
is
also
like
get, like, Chronosis, so, like, the underground, like, maze that, like, the man
the man
built
built. Yeah,
dungeon.
yep. Season 4 is probably the most intense and action-packed season I think we get out
Yeah,
of
it
any of
was, like,
them.
the survival in the dungeon, like, the
Yeah,
lower floors. It
yeah,
was yeah.
like sequence a sequence, an animation sequence that I never thought I would see in Danmachi, which was a beast, a creature within the dungeon, slaughtering just tens of hundreds of people at once. It seemed like, and I'm like, oh, good gravy. Um, And then
Oh,
you get
good googly moogly.
and then you get season 5 and it's like a love story and you're like, "Whoa, all right." Switching gears here. Like so again, going into it, like I had an understanding of what season 5 was going to be based on the trailer and the quick little snippet I read. So I was like, "Ooh, I'm actually intrigued. We're going to learn more about the characters. Less adventure, which I don't mind because there's the great beauty of Danmachi is that the world itself and the characters and the environment are well built out and well structured. I'm going to enjoy this. And season first couple episodes hit. Then
Yeah.
it kept going up. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is getting better. And then we kind of plateaued at one point, and I'm like, all right, it's still fun. And then we fucking took a precipitous drop when they're like, war game. And I'm like, not this fucking shit again. Come on, man. Why?
But, like, at the same time, we understand why there was the war
No,
game,
I
like
get it, but it's so frustrating when you go through a season and you're like, I love what they're doing. I love this. Like, I don't want to give too many spoilers because there's a lot that happens and there's a lot that you have to unpack throughout. But it's like you're learning more about characters. You're learning more about families. You're learning more about like the power of the gods themselves over the middle realm or whatever they call it.
the human realm, the mortal world,
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever they call it. Like you're getting a better understanding of everything at once, and you're like, oh my, like wow, like you have opened my eyes to this wondrous realm of Auroria, like Aurorio, and I'm like, yes, I absolutely adore this. And then they're like, but we need to have some adventure because people are gonna get bored. War game. just I get it. I understand why it fits in. I get it, but it's so stupid that it has to be a war game. It has to be this, and the war
It's not
game, the
because
war
of why
game
it
is
it
is
later.
hide and go seek. I know. I get it. Okay, I understand. There are rules of the gods. They have to abide by the limitations that are placed upon them when they go down to the human realm. I get it, but I still can be fucking pissed when we get this beautiful season of just backstory and lore and character development and world building, all to be stifled by a goddamn war game again.
You've actually convinced me now to give it an 8.5.
You improved it?
Yeah, I improved it. No, because
Why?
the more I think about it, like, because the war game is literally a last result or a last ditch effort.
I
It is
get
the
it.
last thing that they can do. I understand you get it. And to me, I think that it's just like, hey, we are going to wrap this arc up, put a night or not arc up, but we are going to wrap this story thread and put a bow on it. And if in depending on how it ends, we can revisit it later, potentially. But I understand why it's there. I think that it's good, and I think I enjoy the fact that they are putting a bow on a story thread instead of continuing 15 different story threads at once. Because there
Yeah.
are a lot of story threads in this show, and it can be hard to keep up with. And I think the fact that they progressed one so far, it's like, okay, cool. Let's just put a bow on it and continue the rest later. To the point where I'm like, yes, I agree. Do that. So yeah, I
I
think that the first episode it was good. It was more Don Machi. It was a 7.5 for me. It's what I wanted. It wasn't great. It wasn't good. It was just somewhere in the middle there. But as the season went on, as you said, it kept going up and up. It may have plateaued for a bit, and then you think it went down. But to me, it's still up here because I enjoy what I've seen. I enjoyed. I granted, yes, I know it's hide and seek, whatever. But like
yeah,
I've
I just
enjoyed what it is. So that's again differences of opinions. Moving
like
on because I still have
yeah,
a
yeah,
we
yeah,
still have a
yeah.
bunch to get through.
You know,
Next
I
one
think
that
I
I'll just
watched a lot of
quickly
anime. I'm Frank.
suck my wing. Anyways, next one that I'll get through real freaking quick. Shangri-La Frontier Season 2 Part 1. Core 2 started or is just continuing into this season. Really enjoyed it. This is one of those series to me that is entertaining through and through. I fucking love it. It's great. It's just it isn't necessarily turn your brain off, but it is a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
just a very fun series that I feel like not a lot of people talk about. I feel like
Mm.
there's every once in a while I'll see it brought up in conversation, but nobody ever really talks
Talks
about it,
about yeah. Yep.
which I think is a shame because it's great. And I knowing where it goes story-wise, like I'm excited to see part 2.
It's a
But
shame, Real Frontier. All right, I'm done.
fuck you. But yeah, 7.5 for the first episode, 8 for part 1 of season 2.
All right, I'll go through one
And
quick. I know
we
you watched
yeah,
it.
we talked about Ranma, and then we talked about Don Machi, so I've got 2 more before our top 3.
Yeah, I have two more as well. Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Part 3, 8.5 for the first episode, 8 for the second. It fell into the old shonen style at the end where it was just like 3 to 4 episodes of an extended fight where a character just keeps somehow coming back alive and like having different iterations. I basically put in power creep does not exist in the world of Bleach. Rather, if you can dream it, then it's reality. Can someone become a horse owl god and explode whole cities in a blink? Sure. Can a big baby eat hand god fingers like eight hand gods like their finger food? Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
the insanity of Bleach is there, and I love it for that. But like it came back to the old shonen ways of like let's extend a fight 4 to 5 episodes, which is fine because you kept seeing like cool new things, but it was not anything near what parts 1 and 2 were like, where it was just like
Right.
continuous progression forward. So
So, for me, I gave first episode 7.5, I gave the season an 8.5.
okay,
I agree with you that it does that, like, where it's like, oh, it draws fights out. I don't think it actually drew fights out. What it did that Old Bleach does is it gives you 5 different fights that are all happening at the same time.
yeah, I
And
think
it's frustrating that it's just like you just go one by one rather like sometimes they add in one fight in the middle of another fight when it hit a climactic moment. And it's just like, no, finish that fight and go to the next one or whatever. So it kind of like just jumps and it's frustrating. But I think the first episode was definitely the weakest because it felt like, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, it felt like watching a piece, just an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like my trap card is better than your trap card,
Well,
but my trap card is better than your trap card, and
that's
my
all.
trap card is better than yours. It's just like fuck off with your trap cards.
Well, that's the whole.
I get
That's the whole season. That's the whole season with the fights, and it's like, because it's like, oh, you thought you got me, but I got you. Oh shit, you adapted. Well, I
yeah.
adapted to this, and oh god, what am I? I'm about to die, but my partner's here. But they're about to die. Let's team up. Okay, last resort. I'm gonna use my Bankai, and it's like, oh my god, just
But your Bankai is ineffective against me.
yeah. And then I use a sword that can reflect. Whatever. Like,
Yeah.
again, I appreciate it for that fact. It is over the top. It is ridiculous. It's a shonen. All right, I get that.
Yep.
I didn't like how the fights progressed. To your point, yeah, it was jumpy, but I understand they're trying to like have it all happen simultaneously since everything's happening kind of all at once in
Which
this
is one of those things
part.
that I wish that they would put like like one of those things where when shit's going down at the same time, you would put like what time it is in the corner,
Yeah.
and then just like
Well,
when
I
you
think
go to
they
the
try
next
to do
thing, it
that
goes
by like
back.
flashing between the whatever. But yeah, I gave it an 8. I still think it's good. There's just certainly issues with it, but it's not. I didn't think it was as strong as 1 and 2. Parts
Yeah,
1 and 2.
I gave it an 8.5 because I still really enjoyed it. It's the animation quality stayed
Yeah.
consistently great.
I'm gonna do
Um,
I'm gonna do my next
but
one before the top 3 because you're gonna yell at me and I need to prepare myself, I guess. Uh, outside my top 3, but just on the cusp is Blue Box.
fuck you.
First episode was a 9. Overall was an 8.5. I said basically not to the degree of 365, but my note was basically that like incredible episodes that highlighted the athletes and the love interest budding relationships taking place. However, every 2 steps forward our characters took, they fell fucking headfirst down the staircase shortly after. Like, and I was like, an incredible anime is still waiting for that magical moment to happen. Basically, just like it was annoying watching the characters progress because you felt like there was limited amount of growth. Like at the end of the first season, I can't honestly, or the core, I should say, first core. I honestly,
Because the second course started Thursday, by the way.
I know. I honestly can't say that I really think any of the characters developed all too much. Like there were some moments where I could like appreciate the change or growth that could is budding is like in progress, but there's nothing to the extent to where I would confidently say like, yes, I could tell from episode 1 to episode 12, here is the progression of this character, or here is
Yeah.
like the evolution of this relationship or friendship or whatever. Like it was so mute to that, where I enjoyed the sports focused episodes significantly more than the romance focused episodes.
That's fair. And so for me, Blue Box is my number 3 show this season.
No, you're gonna hate me for my number 3 then.
Yeah, actually, no, it's my number 2 show. It's my number 2 show. Because I
You're gonna hate me
ranked
for
my
my
list.
number 2 show.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, I by accidentally re-ranked the thing, but because I put tentative next to the 7.5 of Demon Lord, it put it at
Yeah.
the top of the list. So, Blue Box is my number 2. I'll get into it more when we talk about it. But for me to go through the next couple real quick, or actually just the one show real
Yeah.
quick, because I know this is in your top 3, and I'm very sorry about this. I have ReZero season.
I assumed we had talked about it enough where I knew it was
We
gonna
had.
be outside the top 3.
So I gave the first episode an 8, and I gave the season so far an 8.5.
Oh, first episode an 8. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna make the comment. This is my number 2, only
Okay.
because statistically it has to be, because I gave the first episode a 10 out of 10.
Oh,
I
fair
was. It was so impressive. I'm not even gonna talk about ReZero all too much because there's too much remaining in it. But yeah, you
right.
can talk about
And
why it's
I
outside.
don't want to talk. Yeah, the reason why it's outside for me, like, by no means did I not enjoy it. I really enjoyed ReZero season. However, it is not as good as seasons 1 and 2 in my opinion, and it's not because I think the characters are any lesser, or the animation has taken a dip, or the villains are bad. I just don't think that this has been a ReZero type of season because there weren't like to me ReZero is Subaru dies a lot and figures it the fuck out.
Yeah.
Subaru dies like a handful of times, like in episode 3 or 4, and then it just continues on and there's no checkpoint. And the puzzle to me to get like this isn't necessarily to me like each other season has been a puzzle to figure out. This hasn't been a puzzle to figure out. This is, hey,
Yeah.
we're put in this shitty situation. How do we do this? How do we figure this out? Not how do we figure this out? It's like how do we like it's not how to progress. It's hey, we're gonna keep going, keep going, keep going. And it's like, okay, inevitably when he dies next, what's the next checkpoint? Because we haven't had a checkpoint in fucking 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And to me, it just hasn't felt like the ReZero of past. Granted, there's still a lot to come back to once it comes back in like 40 days or some bullshit.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, it I didn't like the puzzle. I'm gonna just put quote unquote puzzle as much as I did in the previous season.
I like the mystery of it. I think there's less so. I understand the puzzle piece. I think season 1 is definitively like the best in terms of like trying to solve a puzzle and discover like
Oh, I
what the
think
actual.
season two is the best because it is one giant arc and one giant puzzle, but the puzzle keeps progressing little by little.
There's two
While
different.
season one, there are multiple puzzles for the season, but none of them like are a standout like season two is where it's one whole progressive puzzle.
So I guess puzzle from
That's
my
just my
perspective.
opinion.
Yeah,
That's
I would
my opinion.
I would categorize it more as a mystery. I think season 2 is more of a mystery of like what the white whale is, right? And its involvement. Then you have,
White Whale was season one, baby.
was it at the end of season 1? Was that really it?
Yeah.
Oh
Season
God, was
two
it
is
that
literally
long?
escaping
Just yeah,
the town.
the sanctuary. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get them. They all run together at times. It's all one fucking whole giant death sequence. Um,
But yeah,
I like
no,
season 1 more just from the standpoint of like your real goal as the viewer is to be like, what the hell is happening with Subaru, right? Like, what is this? How does he just keep snapping back after he dies? Like, he has some sort of ability. What is it? And it's try to uncover those pieces. And then season 2 is more getting into the deeper part of like, okay, well now what like how did it all happen? They keep talking about this witch. They keep talking about how he has the stench of a witch. Like, what is going on? Then you get to like see the witches. Actually, you get more backstory on like the cult, the witch cult, and some more deeper lore of characters we already know. And then the thing I preach about season 3 though is that like we've established all that. We don't have to do that anymore, right? We've got a solid background. We've got a foundation to sit upon. Now let's see how these characters utilize their skills. And I like that it's less so focused on Subaru like dying and coming back and that whole checkpoint piece, and more so like how him appreciating the fact that when he comes back, like he's getting a second chance, but other people don't. So it's like, okay, how do I do this for the benefit of other people, not myself? Like, how do I do this to where like I'm not doing things risky, right? And putting myself in danger, but I'm still helping those around me. Because there was a whole sequence in season 2 of it when he was in going through the trials of being like, look at all the timelines where you die and you leave all these people behind and they're like depressed. And I think that kind of weighed in on him. So you see more in season 3, him like being strategic and thinking through more, not just being like, I can die and come back. It's a little painful, but it's okay. You're on mute, by the way, before you start talking.
that's fair. Thank you. But yeah, no, it wasn't necessarily that I wanted him to die so much. It's just like
No, I mean,
the progression of the past seasons is like, hey,
yeah,
he figured this out. He figured out this piece. He's on to the next piece, but then he may die once, but figure it out after the one death and then continue on.
yeah.
This is just like he died 5 times from one piece, and then he got severely injured, and then they just continued
Yeah,
back
I mean,
to
I get it.
checkpoints. So,
It's definitely a departure from the other 2 seasons, but I think it's a good movement forward and not repeating, no
right.
pun intended, but like not repeating the whole death cycle season to season with just a new twist to it, I guess.
That's fair. So with that being said, let's get into our top threes. We've already kind of discussed our top twos, but we can touch upon them if we need to a little
Yeah.
bit more. I definitely will because I didn't talk about Blue Box at all.
Yeah,
But my
yeah.
number 3 is negative positive angler. and this was an original show that came out. I gave the initial episode a 7 because I wasn't expecting much, and I was like, you
Hmm.
know what, this is a good episode. It gave me an interesting premise. I like the fishing aspect of it because it reminds me of a kid when I used to fish with my grandpa.
Hmm.
So like I was like, you know what, I'll keep going with this. And I ended up this is the biggest disparity between first episode and season rating. I ended up giving this season a 9. And
Wow.
this is one of those shows that I feel like is gonna stick with me a lot longer because it's not necessarily an anime that's totally devoted to the specific niche that it is focusing on. We have a lot of other shows that focus on like a sport like soccer or badminton, and they kind of go into the particulars and everything about it. They do this here for fishing. They
Hmm.
do that, and they go into the particulars about bait. They go into particulars about currents, the type of fish that you're trying to catch, and what, et cetera, et cetera.
Seasons, yeah.
But they focus a fuck ton on characters and developing those characters. And I think that those character developments are really impactful and really kind of just like they are everyday people. These are everyday problems.
Hmm.
This happens to people. And I think that just focusing on those in the everyday life and why they are there fishing and why they fish
Yeah,
essentially
yeah.
it's really impactful to me, and this one is going to stick with me for a while. Um, but I won't give it away. Like I would watch the first episode, you'll understand why the main character is kind of the center of attention here, and like you kind of forget why he's the center of attention as the story goes on, and then it kind of like hits you like a brick wall
You're like,
near the
oh,
end. Like episode 9, you're like, oh yeah, that's
oh,
happening in his life.
yeah, yeah, and I love.
That's happening in his life, and then they kinda just finish with him and just, like, why he's there and why he's fishing and why he's doing the things he's doing, and I fully love this show. I
Yeah,
I was expecting nothing, I was expecting just a fishing show, and I got a lot more out of it, and I thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed the hell out of this show.
nice. Um, my 3. Why don't you talk about your number 2? Why don't you talk about your number 2?
The Blue Box. Blue Box is my number 2, gave the first episode an 8, gave the season a 9, the first core.
I need to steal my
Um
heart for this next sequence that's gonna take
I
place.
really so yeah, that's fair. I really enjoyed the show. As you said, I really enjoyed the sports sections of it, despite the fact that I feel like the author has never played basketball or watched a basketball game in their life because of how they shoot the ball. Yeah, just the huh. It's really that's the
You don't
one
shoot
big thing
bows
that
out.
aggravates.
Bows out.
Yeah, yeah, bows out, just fucking like chest pass it into the fucking basket.
Love
Yeah,
it.
that's like the one biggest pet peeve of somebody who played basketball as a kid the entirety of their childhood. But no, to me, I really enjoyed Blue Box. I think that all the characters are very unique and very different, and their motivations are all wonderful.
Mhm.
And you were saying like, oh, I didn't really enjoy the romance aspects of, the romance aspect of the show. And I think that that's something that's not as much as you do for other shows. That's what you said.
I no. I enjoyed the sports episodes of Blue Box more than I enjoyed the romance episodes of Blue Box because the characters showed vastly significant growth on the athletic side than they did on the relationship friendship side.
And I think that
I
that's explained a bit later.
I
Because like
again, I
each
get it.
character, yeah,
It is an 8.5 currently. That's how I have it
okay.
labeled in my notes. It's 8.5 currently. I'm not gonna get a Yamada-kun every time I watch a romance where I'm gonna get a nice closure at the end. I understand that. However, there's got to be significant enough progression in developing these connections with characters and showing personal growth as well between characters that leave me wanting to watch those types of episodes more. But I didn't feel that like I did with watching characters improve vastly in their their respective sports.
And I think a part of that does have to deal with the fact that the main guy is very focused on I want a relationship with this girl, and this girl, her personality type is the way it is. Like she's just
Yes.
like very like quiet reserve doesn't talk about that type of
I
thing.
I
And
understand
that's why.
I understand
And they
characteristics. I understand social
but
cues.
with the last episode, though, you got a glimpse of what she is thinking, and it's just like, "Great, I
Yes,
can't wait for more."
I get it, but that's the last episode. That's like the first inkling that we get of like, ooh, will this result in any sort of progress forward? Because like I said, the season was 2 steps forward, tumble back down the staircase.
It
Like
wasn't necessarily tumble
it wasn't
back.
a 2 step forward, 1 step back, right? Because that's making progress. You're going up a step every time. It's 2 steps up, and then you just slip and fall, or you're like, I'm gonna just start back down here. I forgot something, and then you take 2 steps again. You're like, oops, gotta take a shit, and then you go back down the stairs, and then you gotta take 2 steps again. It's like there needs to be more progression. And again, I'm not talking like you have to sprint up the stairs or you have to like jump across a whole fucking floor, right? For me to be impressed. I just need to see enough to where I'm going to want more romance episodes. That's all I'm asking.
I think you'll like Core 2 better than you
I
will Core
again,
1.
8.5 currently. Let
Yeah,
me
to
get to
me,
my
first episode is a 9 or an 8 because I really enjoyed it. It's what I wanted. It's what I expected.
yeah.
It was an 8. Right now, season is a 9 because it's exceeded my expectations because I was fully expecting this show to take a dip in quality
Hmm.
halfway through because of the sports. Sports can go one way or the other, and especially with a show that is also focused heavily on the romance.
Yeah.
I was fully expecting the sports side to just take a fucking huge ass dip, and
Yeah.
it didn't, and I was pleasantly surprised. So to me, it's a 9. But those are my 3 and 2. What is your 3? We know what your 2 is.
I God, I'm not prepared yet.
Just say it.
Don to Don is my 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
But
Uh,
okay, it's not a knock. It's not a knock on Donadon. Again, so like going strictly off my numbers, Donadon's a 3 because I gave first episode 9, season 9, right? I mean, like week to week, great episodes. It
yeah,
didn't linger on a specific like arc. Even I don't
right.
even want to call them arcs because they really aren't. They're just consolidated into one episodes for the most part.
Yeah, there's a couple like 2 episode arcs,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I think
like,
outside of the first one being 4 episodes, like they go by really quickly.
yeah, yeah. I I knew it was going to be chaotic. I didn't really grasp how chaotic it was going to be, and I love that. I think that's the charm about it specifically is that it is so fucking bonkers that you're
Yep.
just like how much more could you get, and it just keeps kind of delivering on like the craziness of it. I love all the little references too to other like shows and movies and things like that too, like with Nessie doing like the Shin Godzilla fucking shoot a laser beam, like that's so cool. It's like stuff like that. Like I love all the references they make, even if references I don't understand, like when Ayase is doing the one character and she just keeps going like turbo engine or whatever she keeps saying.
Yeah.
uh like I love it. It's just it was impressive week to week. I think the only nitpick, I shouldn't say nitpick, I think it is objective based on people trying to follow what we said in our rubric. Well, people have said online and kind of their frustration about it. But again, I understand they already knew there was going to be a second core. It's just going to be summer, right?
Yep.
The ending 2 episodes felt awkward, where like I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if they
Yeah,
should have picked up the pace or slowed it down, but it certainly ended on like a really weird note. Albeit it's a decent enough cliffhanger, but I guess not enough to where I'm like, holy shit,
yeah.
I can't wait for summer. It's like that's strange. Why would it end
They
here?
they ended right at like they ended at the beginning of the next arc, but they like started that arc in which they gave it like an episode and a half.
Yeah.
Like, it was really weird. To me, I gave this is my number 1 show this season. I gave the
Yep.
first episode an 8.5, and I gave the season a 9.5.
Okay.
To
So on the
me,
cusp of perfect.
correct. I think with it ending the way it did, and the first episode in which, after talking to a bunch of people and really kind of analyzing it, I wish that they would have handled Momo in a different way. I don't
Yes.
think that the SA, the potential of an SA happening, it it is lazy writing. I think that there are other ways that they can make her character progress and get through a difficult situation than being SA'd. I think that to me, after talking to a bunch of people, it's like, yeah, really, when you think of a strong, female character, a lot of the times they go through a situation in which they are SA'd, and I think that it is in today's day and age, we can do something about that. We can do better, and that's why that's the only like reason why I gave the first episode an 8 and a half.
Well,
I
I mean,
understand why I understand why it happens. I understand the context, like, of why it happens and why she gets saved and how she gets saved. I get it, but at the same time, I think that now in today's day and age, we don't have to do that to make a strong female character.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I 150 bajillion% agree. Um, I will say though, it is very awkward based on everything you said, right? Because it's like
Yeah,
that moment is sort of the catalyst to her understanding or like realizing
awakening to
she
her
has her
powers and
powers.
everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're like,
I know.
okay, weird, like triggering mechanism for awakening that power within her, but okay, we're gonna just like
Yeah,
we're going to reprimand you for having that, but just don't do it again. They I don't want to be that person. They're kind of doing it again.
yeah,
Like last episode, little suspect, little
yeah.
unnerving. Don't like that. Like I I'm trying to understand why it would keep coming to it. The only thing I can extrapolate. The only thing I can hypothesize is that they're leaning on this whole thing of like she is the most popular person at the school for her, like in her grade or her class or whatever, right? Like
But she's not. But yeah,
she's not. No, but also too, it's like you're like, okay, in school, sure, but these are aliens and otherworldly creatures. Like they wouldn't care about her popularity. You don't have to keep
there
putting this
there is
character in situations where she's going to come across like the potential to be SA'd and have that be sort of like a vault for
yeah.
her growing or becoming stronger or whatever. Like it has to stop at some point.
Yeah, and the not necessarily explanation, but I saw recently a video that kind of put a bit more context to it, in which a majority of the times that this is about to happen, they are all these people or all these aliens, they are all dressed up as like Japanese businessmen, and there's no mistaking
Yes.
it for
I-
being Japanese businessmen, and then it's
yes.
like a commentary on the whole situation of the shitty situation in Japan and
Well,
these,
let's be real. It's a situation across the entire world, not limited to
this
a
shit.
country.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
Not
is a
limited. You're right.
every country has a stereotype for people that are predators of this nature and commit
To the
these
specific type of person.
right.
Yeah.
I just and
Yeah, you're right.
I should say too, like we're not saying that this stuff is like we don't want to come across as saying like this should be like we're gonna pretend like this doesn't exist in the world because that's not the case. We understand that this
Right.
exists in the world, but there's a more appropriate manner to bring topics like this forward. We had a whole episode about this, and this is like bringing me back to that and triggering a lot of things from the conversation.
Yeah.
There's just more appropriate ways to start a discussion of this topic. Having one of your main characters effectively go through not one but two instances of like SA is not the most appropriate way to do that. Like just having like very explicit scenes of them experiencing like a traumatic event where they're like on the verge or in actuality being SA'd is like, okay, that's not cool. That's not appropriate, right? Yes, we understand it's something that happens, and yes, we understand you're trying to portray the stereotypical Japanese businessman as someone who perpetrates these acts. We get it. It's just not
Still not
appropriate.
right.
It's not appropriate
Yeah.
for this context. Like it's not appropriate for the medium that you're bringing it forward in and the manner that it's being done. All right, I don't want to talk about it too
Yeah.
much more. It's just that
No,
sequence
that's
is
fine.
enough. But yeah, I mean, that I
But
shouldn't say
I
that was like a main reason why I gave it a 9. I didn't think overall the first season was like perfect because of how it ended. But I understand it's due to the fact that it's a 2-core. I just didn't understand why they paced it in that fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that they would have delayed it a season to where it would have been coming out now,
Yeah,
and then have season 2 in summer where it's like, "Oh, we only delayed it by
like a
a season,
smaller.
you'll get more in the summer." Right.
Yeah.
Rather than having to wait 2 seasons for that mix. But, yeah, no, this is my number 1 show. Again, 8.5 for the first episode, and then a 9.5 for the overall season. It's the show that I was expecting, it was the show that I wanted, and episode 7 is a goddamn masterpiece.
Yeah.
But, we talked about your number 2, which was ReZero, and I'm trying to rack my fucking brain as to what your number 1 show can
It
be.
was I picked this as my dark horse for this season. I picked this as the keep an eye out. This could be really good. And it hit. It hit a lot more than what I expected it to. And that's Orb on the Movement of Earth.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
This
Orb.
anime is incredible. First episode 9, overall 9.5 currently. It's a 2-core.
Yep.
We talked about this before, but for anyone who doesn't know, it's effectively in the 1600s, what assumes to be like European um, uh, part of the world, heavy Catholicism, effectively during the time period where there was like pseudo crusades, where anything that was blasphemous against the church would be kind of wiped out instantaneously. And one of the big pieces was geocentrism, the idea that the Earth was at the center of the universe and everything rotated around the Earth. Obviously, today we know that's not the case, but it kind of captures this movement back then of the heliocentrism theory, which is, well, no, the sun's at the center of the universe. We revolve around the sun along with these other planetary bodies.
Yeah.
And I'll note, it's heavy science. It's heavy astrology. It's heavy astronomy. It's heavy like religious theory, right? It's a, I don't want to say like a big thinker of an anime, but it is. There's a lot of like
You gotta
real
use your brain.
scientific. Yeah, there's like a lot of real scientific theory and methodology that they talk about, to where it's not like something you can just turn your brain off and be like, yeah, I'll just have it on the background and listen. Like, you got to kind of pay attention. So if you
Yeah.
can't get past that, if you can't get past the historical portion or the scientific portion, not for you. But if you can, you're able to digest that, holy shit, is this anime entertaining? Like, my note is basically the first half of the anime is stellar. A lot of historical elements mixed with a heavy dosage of astronomy and science, but it is wildly entertaining each and every episode. Like, I was floored by how impressed I was with this anime in terms of its storytelling, in terms of how in depth they go into the heliocentrism and geocentrism theory, how they explore the impact of Catholicism and, just kind of religion in the the prevention of advancement really in society. Sorry, didn't mean to sound blasphemous there, but yeah, people were killed because they tried to prove things right,
Shame.
and God was like, "Smite thee." I like this. This anime is incredible, and there was like a major twist, like 3 episodes in, that I forgot about because they literally say it in the blurb about the anime. I completely forgot, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And then episode 4 starts, and I'm like, "What the hell?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I knew this, but I forgot." Like, the first 3 episodes are so entertaining that I'm just like, "Why?
Oh, fuck.
Why is this happening?" And then it's like, "You read about it, stupid. You knew the synopsis." And I was like, "Oh yeah." Like, I was on the edge of my seat almost every episode. Like, it is still action packed. It is kind of disturbing at times. There's a lot of like, I put a note for the first episode, like, if you're not good with torture scenes, be warned. There is a graphic torture scene. There's a couple as that progresses as well. But just, man, it's beautiful. Like for you know how we gab and gush about Call of the Night and how like it really embodies
Yeah.
this kind of like lo-fi night. It brings like
Anyhow, yeah.
it brings out like the I can't remember what studio did the animation for it, but like they did a great job of taking what is seemingly to be like just blackness, right? Where it's just like dark and there's no life to it, and brought this like huge like this vibrant nature to nighttime with like splashes of purple and making it seem just gorgeous like each and every night. I was like, okay, for an anime about astrology and astronomy, you better be good at, depicting the sky. Jesus
Madhouse.
Christ.
Madhouse is
Oh
the
yeah.
maker or studio for Orb,
Oh no,
by
I
the way.
knew Orb. I couldn't remember Call of the Night. Orb is Madhouse, which I think I halfway through I
I can look
realized it
up
was
Orb.
Madhouse, and I was like, oh yeah, of course this is Madhouse. That's why I love it. If you're not
Uh,
aware,
Call of
Madhouse.
the Night is Linden Films.
Oh yeah, Linden Films. And if you're not aware, Madhouse also did Frieren, so keep that in mind too, because the
Yep.
animation quality is awesome. But yeah, like this was my dark horse for a reason because I was like, it if you can just get through the historical and scientific pieces. If you're not someone who enjoys that, I really enjoy that. Like I love history. I really like learning, different areas of science too. So that was an enjoyable
Yeah.
piece to it, coupled with the fact that this is just a absolutely stellar anime. Like you will be wildly impressed on how entertaining it can be. Like you're just thinking like, oh, it's just about the universe and like God killing people that goes against the will of his followers. Like how cool would that, and it's historical. It's in the 1600s. How fun could that be? Trust me. Go through the first 3-4 episodes, you'll be blown away.
Yeah. Um, so overall for the season, we didn't discuss it before, but we're discussing it now. What would you give the season as like a rating grade, A, B, C, D, F? To me,
ABCDF.
yeah, to me, I'd probably give this season an A minus. I was entertained by a lot, and there wasn't a lot that I was kind of like poo pooing on. There was a lot I enjoyed a lot more than I really poo pooed on, and the top tier shows stayed top tier for me, and the kind of bottom tier shows I knew were going to be bottom tier. There was really only one show I
Yeah,
was disappointed on, but there was one show that way outshined it that I never even imagined to be as good as it was.
I think
So to me, I want to give this season A minus.
going through that same analysis, I would say B plus, only from the standpoint that I had more shows I watched that were less impressive than I had hoped versus ones that I had that was more impressed than when I watched it, right? Like I knew ReZero was going to be great. I knew Dandadan was going to be great. I had hoped for more in Danmachi. I hoped for more in 365.
Yeah,
Bleach was good. Blue Box was good. Um, I like Ranma. I went in kind of not expecting much because it's a remake, and it was like it's okay. The only one that was
it's fine.
like beat expectations was my dark horse, which was Orb. So like going with that mentality, like I had one that extended far beyond versus like a
Yeah,
handful that were kind of less impressive. So I would say B plus because I still had more of my shows at the 8.5 range. So
that's fair.
I wished for more from Danmachi. I wished more from 365. I wished, well, obviously Uzumaki. I don't even want to like
No,
factor
we're
that
not counting.
in.
That happened so long ago.
I
It could
know.
be considered fall or not
I know.
fall. Summer.
Yeah, like Maglamir was kind of the same way too, but and there was certainly a lot that I didn't watch that if I did and I liked it, it would affect it. But from what I watched, I would say it'd be probably a B plus, strong B plus. Like if you
Yeah.
did a little bit extra credit, you might get an A minus.
Fair enough. And thank you all for joining us this week. Thank you for making it this far in the show. If you did, extra credit for you. Greatly appreciate it. We'll be back next week with the Baka Awards. We are going to go over basically, we have a bunch of awards that we are going to be giving out for shows of 2024. We won't say what they are, but it's going to be a good time.
Is that
What are you?
next week?
Yes. Hello? Yeah, that's next week, buddy.
Oh God, I have so
Yeah.
much homework.
Yes, you do. So next week we will have our Baka Awards, in which we are going to be basically going over all of 2024 as a whole and giving out basically doing our own awards ceremony because Crunchyroll does us dirty every
Because
fucking year.
Crunchyroll copies us too, because they used to be on a stupid format of like, it's from fall to summer. And we were like, that's dumb. You're going to do ours from winter to fall because that makes more sense, you stupids. And then they were like, oh, we are stupid, changing the format. So you copied us, Crunchyroll. Hear me now. I am a lawyer and I'm scared
And
of you because you have many more lawyers than just me. But just know,
Crunchyroll, if you ever wanna work with us, we'll work with you. But
yeah, seriously though, if Crunchyroll, please, if you hear this, we will work with you. I
give us
promise.
votes. Please let us vote. Please let us fucking
Oh
vote.
god, if we could just be on that, yeah, we'll have our stupid mugs up there to be able to vote as judges. God, my life would be complete.
That it would. But thank you again for joining us this week. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. We will be posting daily now on the social medias, the TikToks, the YouTube Shorts, and the Instagram Reels.
And the
We are trying
threads.
to do. And I didn't know we were
I'm
on
trying to
Threads.
do
That's a
threads
thing I
now,
have not
baby.
downloaded.
Don't know what it
I have
is,
not downloaded.
but we got stuff up there.
So Facebook, Twitter, Threads.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically we're on most of the social medias you can think of. So stay tuned for our short form content there, which we are trying to post daily. I'm currently being blackballed anytime I try to post, so we're figuring through that. But yeah, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. So until next time, Spark Triumph. We'll see you then.